They paired us on the same project team without asking either of us. Two strangers. One deadline. And a conference room too small for secrets. I looked up and forgot what I was about to say. Elena Cruz smiled at me, and something inside me quietly shifted. Nobody warned me a look could rewrite a whole life plan. Then my mother called, asking when I'd finally bring a man home. I hung up the phone, staring at Elena, wondering how to answer either question. My name is Riley Bennett, 28. A marketing associate in Chicago. I had built a careful, quiet life, never expecting anyone like Elena to walk into it. Elena joined our Chicago office from Austin, hired to lead the Grayson Foods rebrand pitch. Our director paired us as co-leads, saying our styles would balance each other out perfectly. She was blunt where I was careful, funny where I was formal, unafraid where I hesitated. The first week, we argued over fonts, budgets, and whose coffee order was more embarrassing. By Friday, we were laughing so hard our manager knocked on the glass wall. I told myself it was just good chemistry, the kind that makes projects run smoothly. Late one night, working overtime, she admitted she'd moved to Chicago to start over completely. I didn't ask what she was starting over from, though I wanted to. She caught me staring once and simply said, "You can ask." You know. I didn't ask then either. But something between us had already quietly changed. We started grabbing dinner after work, calling it, just finishing the pitch discussion. 3 weeks in, I realized I looked forward to Tuesdays only because of her. One night, deadline chaos hit, and we ordered pad thai to eat at midnight in the office. She talked about her childhood in Texas, how she'd left half her family behind quietly. I told her about my mother in Ohio, who called nightly asking about my dating life. "Any boyfriends yet?" she asked, mimicking my mother's voice. And I laughed until it hurt. Then I stopped laughing, because Elena was watching me like she already knew the truth. "I'm not interested in men," I said finally, testing the words out loud for the first time. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "Took you long enough to say it here." Turned out Elena already knew. Had known women like me her whole life, including herself. That night we stayed until 2 a.m. Not working, just talking about everything we'd hidden. I told her I'd never said those words to anyone outside my closest friends before. She squeezed my hand across the table, and for once, hiding didn't feel lonely. The Grayson Foods pitch became an excuse. Really? We just wanted more time together. Derek from accounts started noticing how often our names appeared on the same calendar invites. He made a comment once about work wives, and something in his tone felt sharper than joking. I brushed it off, too happy to let his comment ruin my new favorite part of work. Elena invited me to her apartment to finalize slides, and we never opened the laptop. We sat on her balcony instead, watching the Chicago skyline, saying nothing for a long while. "I like you," she finally said, plain and unguarded. The way she said everything important. I didn't answer with words. I just leaned over and kissed her before I could overthink it. She laughed against my mouth and said, finally, like she'd been waiting for weeks. We agreed to keep things quiet at work, at least until the pitch was finished. Outside the office, though, we stopped pretending, holding hands on walks along the lakefront. She met my roommate first, who took one look at us and said, "Oh, obviously." I met her best friend Priya, who warned me gently, "Elena doesn't open up easily." I asked what she meant, and Priya just said, "Ask Elena when she's ready." I noticed a photo on Elena's shelf, a woman I didn't recognize, quickly turned face down. I didn't push, figuring everyone carries old photographs of people who used to matter. Weeks passed in a kind of secret happiness. Dinners, late walks, weekends spent mostly together. At work, we were co-leads on Grayson Foods, professional, careful, giving nothing away. Outside. We were something neither of us had words for yet, and didn't need any. My mother called again, asking if I'd met someone nice at the office lately. Actually, yes, I said carefully, testing how much truth my voice could hold. A nice young man. I hope, she said. And I let the silence answer for me. I hung up feeling the familiar ache of loving someone I couldn't yet name to her. Elena noticed my mood shift and asked gently, "Your mom again?" I just nodded. "You don't have to tell her anything before you're ready," she said, holding my hand tighter. I loved her for saying that, even as guilt gathered quietly somewhere behind my ribs. The Grayson Foods pitch succeeded. Our biggest win of the year. Thanks to both our ideas. Our director praised the chemistry between us in front of the whole department. Not knowing why, Derek clapped along but watched us a beat too long, like he was doing math. That weekend, Elena took me to a small lake house her friend owned for our first trip. We turned off our phones, and for 2 days, the world outside simply didn't exist. She told me about growing up gay in a small Texas town, quiet and watchful. "I learned to disappear before I learned to be myself," she said, staring at the water. I held her hand and told her she didn't have to disappear around me. Ever. She smiled. But something in her eyes looked like she wasn't fully convinced yet. We came home lighter. Closer. Already planning our next getaway before we'd even unpacked. I started imagining a future out loud for the first time in years. And meant it. Elena would go quiet whenever I mentioned forever, like the word cost her something. I told myself it was nothing. That happiness this good simply made me impatient. My sister Claire visited Chicago and immediately noticed how often Elena's name came up. "Are you two together?" she asked bluntly. And I finally said yes. Out loud. "To family." Claire hugged me tight and said, "I already knew. Mom's the one who'll struggle." That word, struggle, sat heavy in my chest for the rest of the weekend. Back at work, Derek started asking pointed questions about how close Elena and I really were. I deflected every time, but his questions grew bolder, almost rehearsed, almost strategic. Elena warned me he'd been passed over for the promotion I was next in line for. "Watch him," she said. "Men like that don't ask questions out of curiosity." I wanted to believe office politics and my personal life were separate, unrelated things. Then one evening, a woman named Vanessa showed up outside Elena's apartment building, waiting. Elena froze when she saw her, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "This is Vanessa," Elena said quietly. "We used to be together. Back in Austin." Vanessa looked at me, then at Elena, and said, "So this is why you moved?" I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing and let them talk alone. Elena came back an hour later, refusing to tell me what Vanessa had said. "It's complicated," she said, and for the first time, I felt shut out of her life. I told myself to trust her, but the photo on her shelf suddenly made more sense. Meanwhile, my mother called to say she was visiting Chicago for my birthday. Unannounced. Panic hit me instantly, thinking about Elena's toothbrush still sitting in my bathroom. I asked Elena to stay away for the weekend, and hated myself for asking it. "So I'm someone to hide when it's convenient?" she asked, hurt sharpening her voice. "It's not like that," I said, though part of me knew it kind of was. My mother arrived, cheerful and oblivious, asking again about nice young men at the office. I smiled through dinner, swallowing words that felt heavier with every polite question she asked. At work, Derek cornered me by the elevators, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Heard some interesting things about you and Elena," he said. "Might be worth clearing up." I asked what he wanted, and he said, plainly, "Recommend me for the account lead role." So this was never about morality, it was leverage, dressed up as concern. I refused, and he shrugged. Just think about what people upstairs might think. That's all. I left work shaking, furious at him and terrified of what he might actually do. Elena and I barely spoke that week. Both distracted. Both carrying separate, unspoken weights. My mother, still visiting, asked why I seemed so tense. Sua enlika my isol self. Work stress, I lied. And she studied me the way mothers do when they sense more. One evening she found an old photo of me and Elena laughing at the lake house. She went quiet. Then asked carefully, "Who is this woman you're standing so close to?" I froze, caught between years of careful silence and the sudden urge to finally speak. "She's someone I care about," I said. "More than care about. Actually, I love her." My mother set the photo down slowly, her face unreadable, her hands trembling slightly. "I need to process this," she said quietly, and left for her hotel that same night. I called Elena, needing comfort, but she didn't pick up. Not once. All evening. The next morning, my mother called, voice tight, saying she needed space for a while. I felt the ground shifting under two relationships at once, both suddenly uncertain. Elena finally called back, distant, saying Vanessa had asked her to consider moving back to Austin. "For what?" asked, panic rising. And she said, "A job. And maybe more than that." I asked if she wanted to go, and her silence lasted far too long for comfort. "I don't know," she admitted. "Everything here feels complicated right now, including us." I hung up feeling like I was losing my mother and Elena in the very same week. Derek, sensing my distraction, pushed harder, hinting to our director that something unprofessional was happening. Our director called me in, asking carefully if there was anything I needed to disclose. I sat there, throat tight, realizing every part of my life was suddenly on trial. I told our director there was nothing unprofessional, only something personal I hadn't disclosed. "I'm gay," I said, voice shaking. "And yes, Elena and I are together outside of work." She nodded slowly and said policy required her to pass this along to senior management. Word spread through the office within days, faster and uglier than I ever expected. Some coworkers were kind, quietly supportive. Others suddenly grew distant, avoiding eye contact entirely. Derek acted victorious, smug in meetings, as though he'd won something important against me. I confronted him directly, asking why he cared so much about my personal life. "I don't," he said. "I care about the promotion you're currently blocking me from." Vanessa, unexpectedly, texted me directly, saying we needed to talk. Just the two of us. We met at a coffee shop, and she admitted she'd overheard Derek plotting weeks earlier. "I wasn't trying to steal Elena back," she said. "I was trying to warn her about him." Years ago, a coworker outed Vanessa in Austin, costing her a promotion and half her friends. "I saw it happening again," she said, "and I panicked. Handled it badly. I'm sorry." I realized I'd misjudged her completely, mistaking an old wound for present-day jealousy. I told Elena everything Vanessa had said, and something between us finally softened again. "I should have told you all of it up front," Elena admitted. "I was scared of losing you too." We held each other that night, exhausted, but closer than the fear had let us be. Meanwhile, my mother finally called back, asking to meet for coffee. Just us two. She looked older somehow, tired, like she'd been carrying something heavy for days. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Something I never told anyone in our family." She told me about her older sister, my Aunt Grace, who came out in 1987. Their parents disowned Grace completely. She hadn't spoken to the family in almost 40 years. "I was scared history would repeat itself," my mother said. "Scared of losing you too." I sat there stunned, realizing her fear had never really been about me being gay. It had been about an old wound she'd never healed, dressed up as disapproval. "I don't want to lose you like we lost her," she said, finally crying openly. I held my mother's hand, feeling 40 years of silence sitting quietly between us. At work, senior management scheduled a meeting to review the situation the following Monday. Elena and I braced ourselves, unsure whether we'd both still have jobs by Tuesday. Derek, confident, told colleagues he expected certain people to be let go very soon. The night before the meeting, Elena admitted Vanessa's job offer in Austin still stood. "I'm not choosing her," she clarified quickly, "but the offer feels safer than this mess." I asked if she was leaving, and she said, "I honestly don't know anymore." That fear cracked something open in me, a fear of losing everything at once. I barely slept, replaying every version of Monday's meeting and every version of goodbye. Morning came, and Elena and I walked into the building together, hands not quite touching. Our boss, Mr. Whitfield, called us both into his office, expression completely unreadable. Derek waited outside, practically smiling, certain the outcome would finally favor him instead. Mr. Whitfield closed the door and asked simply, "Tell me what's actually been happening here." I explained everything: the relationship, Derek's leverage attempt, the promotion he clearly wanted. Elena added details about Derek's earlier comments, the ones we'd both dismissed as jokes. Mr. Whitfield listened silently, jaw tight, before finally speaking in a low, careful voice. "My son came out to me 3 years ago," he said. "I almost lost him over it." The room went completely still. Neither Elena nor I expected that particular confession. "I won't repeat my mistake by punishing someone else's honesty," he said, quiet but firm. He called Derek in and asked him directly about the promotion conversation by the elevators. Derek denied everything, badly, tripping over his own story within the first 2 minutes. Mr. Whitfield informed him, calmly, that attempted blackmail was grounds for immediate termination, effective today. Derek's face went pale as security walked him out past our stunned, silent department. I sat there shaking, relief and disbelief crashing over me in the very same breath. Mr. Whitfield apologized personally, saying our workplace should have protected us far sooner. He offered Elena a permanent promotion to account director, no longer a temporary transfer. She hesitated before answering, glancing at me, clearly still weighing Vanessa's offer in Austin. That night, I asked her honestly what she actually wanted, not what fear wanted for her. "I want to stop running before things get hard," she said. "I want to stay." She turned down Austin, choosing Chicago, choosing the promotion, choosing us. Finally, out loud, relief washed through me so completely that I laughed and cried at the same time. Meanwhile, my mother asked for my Aunt Grace's old phone number, saved from decades ago. It had been disconnected for years, so she hired a researcher to find her instead. 2 weeks later, my mother found Aunt Grace living quietly in Portland, still alone. She called her, voice shaking, and said simply, "I'm sorry it took 40 years. Aunt Grace cried on the phone, saying she'd given up hope of ever hearing those words. My mother invited her to Chicago, admitting she wanted to meet the family she'd hidden. I met my aunt for the first time at 62, sharp, funny, and unapologetically herself. "You look like her," she told me, smiling at my mother with decades of missing time. Watching them reconnect, I understood my mother's fear differently, less as rejection, more as grief. She hugged me tightly that night and said, "I don't want to lose 40 years with you too. Bring Elena to Sunday dinner," she added, quietly, like the words cost her everything and nothing. I brought Elena the following Sunday, hands shaking, prepared for anything except what actually happened. My mother hugged Elena first, before even greeting me, and said, "Welcome to the family." Aunt Grace laughed loudly and said, "Well, someone finally broke this family's terrible habit." Dinner ran late, full of stories, old photographs, and 40 years of catching up. Elena squeezed my hand under the table, and I finally understood what safe truly felt like. At work, Elena's promotion became official, and mine followed a month later. No longer separate, we stopped hiding our relationship entirely. No more careful pronouns. No more edited stories. Colleagues who'd stayed distant slowly warmed again, especially after watching nothing bad actually happen. Priya, Elena's best friend, admitted she'd never seen Elena this settled, this unguarded, before. Vanessa sent a short message wishing us well, closing a chapter neither of us regretted. 1 year after the Grayson Foods pitch, Elena proposed quietly, on that same office balcony. I said yes before she even finished the question, laughing through unexpected, happy tears. My mother cried harder than either of us at the wedding, seated beside Aunt Grace. Claire gave a toast about struggle, reminding everyone how far our family had actually come. Mr. Whitfield sent flowers and a card that read, "Proud of what courage builds." I thought about the version of myself who once hid an entire relationship in silence. That version of me couldn't have imagined a table this full, this loud, this honest. 40 years of silence had finally broken, one overdue phone call at a time. I looked at Elena across the room and knew every hard chapter had led here. We built a life neither of us had to hide anymore, surrounded by family who finally chose to see us. Love, turned out, was never the complicated part. Silence always was. Fendi.